throughout Premier, we'll see a different structure of discounts for different customers.
Okay, I got it. So this kind of discount is based on the product type, but it's not related to like a brand.
No. Yes.
Okay, got it.
So yes.
Okay, got it. Yeah. Okay. Come back to the Grifols flex bag. They still have the glass bottled albumin. So do you know that do they planning a switch to I guess so, like a switch from the glass to has the flex bag replaced the glasses, or is like just launched the bags to capture Takeda's client?
For Takeda in general or outside of Takeda?
I think Takeda only have flex bag. So my question is that Grifols has both. Would Grifols like want to displace their bottled albumin, like to switch as Takeda, like all into flex bag, or what? Like, do you aware of any of their strategies?
Yes. The idea that's been shared with me is that there is supposed to be a gradual transition from the vials to strictly the bags.
Mm-hmm.
I'd have to. I can check on that too. If they can provide a loose timeline about how long that transition.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe make a note of that too.
Yeah, that's really great.
All right. Yeah, and I'll follow up with that as well.
Great. So, do you know that how Takeda did that switch? Like how long, and then has they done anything to promote that adoption?
Yeah, it was gradual, done over the course of, we were carrying both presentations, I believe, for 14 months, somewhere around that range.
Mm-hmm.
Just because it's slow teaching people new habits, and everybody's very resistant to change. So, we supplied both. Then there was a gradual shifting of pricing to encourage transitions to the bag. Mm-hmm. Also, from a contractual standpoint, Takeda obviously stopped, including any of the vials in their new contracts. Mm-hmm. And then later on, once the vast majority of Takeda customers had transitioned to the bags, then it becomes a process for us to obviously get rid of those vials in a timely manner before they date. Mm-hmm. So then there was a gradual price decrease of the vials, mm-hmm. in an effort to get rid of them with customers that had potentially already made the switch. So it's the pricing of the two kind of, cross and then adjust.
Got it. That's very clear. So what's your view on the plastic bag versus the glass bottled albumin? Like, it seems that you little bit push to let people to switch, but then once they switch, they were happy with it.
Yeah, from as someone that hasn't obviously administered any of the bags or vials myself, just conveying to you what I've heard a lot is that people vastly prefer the bags to the vials. Mm. There is, what we do see within individual systems is that battle between administration and utilization, where the administrators are going to try and keep costs down as much as possible, whereas then, the nurses or the doctors much prefer something that has ease of use. So there's, a balance there. But as I said, where we've really heard hospitals get pushback is if they try and switch back from the bags. So I do think it's the traffic is all in one direction.
It's just how fast it will be.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
So CSL does not have any flex bag product. So what's your interpretation there? Like, how would they cope with the adoption of flex bag by more and more hospitals?
Yeah, great question. As we talked about a little bit, I think that the CSL maybe has fallen into the idea of being focused on IVIG more than albumin, and they've been relying on their market share a lot too. People do, from an IVIG perspective, really seem to prefer Privigen to other products as a whole. And since the contracts are written in tandem, I don't think they've really
cared
that it was that big of an issue. That being said, the CSL may have bags in production too, and I can certainly check with their team on that. It's just not a question I've ever asked. So, but okay. I'm curious about it as well.
Great. So, so CSL will be taking like the portfolio bundle strategy. So they because their IVIG is a preferred product, so it's does not make it's perhaps not going to be a deal breaker if they do not provide a flashback albumin.
Mm-hmm. With albumin being so generic too, we don't have with IVIG. If there's a potential switch, hospital systems will obviously run it through so many different physicians and other people to affirm and discuss clinical benefits. With albumin, there's no discussion of that. Albumin is albumin, is what everybody always says. So they're not going to get pushback from any of the providers on which brand they're using unless it is the bag. So that becomes a really differentiating factor from albumin, where for the most part there isn't any otherwise. That's the only thing we're really going to hear is, okay, we prefer the bags, nurses prefer the bags. But other than that, everybody's like, it's albumin, we don't really mind which brand. So, yes, I think CSL will continue to kind of say, we're just going to, continue to write contracts with Privigen, and if they'll take our albumin because they want Privigen.
Yeah. So is CSL still the leader in terms of volume?
For us, actually, as a whole, nationwide, Grifols is the largest. We distribute more Grifols IVIG as a combination than CSL. I believe as a whole combined, though, it depends on how you want to look at it. From a revenue standpoint, I believe CSL with their albumin and factor product is our number one manufacturer. But from a volume of IVIG, I'd have to look at albumin. I believe CSL albumin is our top one, but I'll have to follow up on that too.
Okay, gotcha. I'll write that down. So how does CSL was able to maintain that position? By pricing and service?
Pricing is a big one. Service has also been a great factor for them. CSL has been very consistent with their supply, even during areas of shortage where they were allocated as well. They've done a really good job about providing sufficient product for their contracted customer. And I think the focus on the contract, when they negotiate these terms, I think are sincere with saying that we're going to meet our obligation from a volume perspective. And that's resonated throughout the community. People understand that they're pretty reliant. Excuse me. Whereas we see some other manufacturers, maybe there isn't that same type of trust in when they say they're going to be able to provide product. And that's not to be, Grifols has been very consistent with it, but there were some situations with Takeda last year, voiding some contracts that really keeps on coming up. Some very unhappy customers with how that was handled. So I think that plays a part in it too. But as you said, pricing helps as well. They're very competitive with their pricing.
Okay. So Takeda was avoiding the clients. So what's it going there? Because they have to fulfill the requirements by their preferred clients? Or?
Takeda had with Premier had a contract, and during the period of shortage of IVIG, voided it, said they couldn't fulfill their obligations, and just canceled the rest of the contract, basically.
Okay.
And it couldn't have been worse timing from a customer standpoint. It was when everybody was very unsure about where they were going to get product from month to month. And it was so I know it came up again with a conversation this week where Premier is very unhappy still with Takeda and not willing to even entertain, having them be the preferred partner, IVIG or albumin partner for any of their customers.
Okay, got it. So because IVIG, I guess, is a short, supply is constrained because the plasma donation is reduced, and then because usually the IVIG and albumin are bundled, so they were not able to fulfill the IVIG, so they're also affecting the albumin contracting. Okay.
And the thought was at the time that the reasoning behind it was that they had negotiated, and Takeda when they're approaching non-customers and trying to negotiate, they are being very, very aggressive with large IDNs now with pricing. But the thought was at the time when they voided that contract that it was done because they felt they could sell the IVIG to other customers at a higher price. They wouldn't be locked into providing that at that aggressive, negotiated price program. So that's where the really hard feelings, I think, came into play.
Yeah, so basically they break the contracts for higher price. Got it.
Exactly.
Yeah. So, how do the smaller ones, such as Cadron and